is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. As you guys can see, as you ladies and gentlemen can see, there are two heads above me. On my left is going to be Josh Fann. On my right is going to be Michael D'Arcy. What is going on, guys? We'll start off with Josh. What is going on, man?
Not much. Doing good, Lucas. Glad to be back on with you.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Michael, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I like what we got going on here. It's finally time to get Lucas, me, and Josh on one Zoom meeting. So I'm ready.
That's what's up. I think I titled this Zoom call "The Meeting of the Brain." So we'll
big business plans in the works, folks. Big business plans.
For sure. We as I like to always say, this is my lab, and I like to go to work in the lab, and we've definitely been doing some work in the lab for sure.
Yes.
But in all honesty, guys, I want this to kind of be more fun. I know we're getting ready to dive into the Chiefs season. Speaking of training camp and things like that, but I also want it to be more kind of like us just coming together and talking. So the first thing I do want to ask you guys is, what is your go-to tailgating food item? Your go-to, like, there's a lot of people that like to grill dogs. There's a lot of people that like to do hamburgers. Mind you, we're talking a lot of the time it's super early in the morning. What is your go-to tailgate item? Josh, we'll start with you.
Honestly, just picking up some wings from somewhere has got to be my choice. Gotta go with wings.
Are you going with like the traditional wing stop, or what do you got? What are you doing?
Whatever I'm feeling. Maybe go to the Buffalo Wild Wings and watch the game.
Okay.
So Josh just pulls a straight up, I'm buying food. I'm not cooking it. I'm just buying it, which it's respectable. Honestly, it kind of depends, because like I've done a few tailgates for like Royals games, and you get there to the point where you're early enough you could basically cook a full course meal. But sometimes Chiefs games, it's like you get there early in the morning and then you just kind of keep talking and you put off the grilling, and so it gets to the point where it's like, hey, you gotta move it up. But if I was to pick like an ideal tailgate food, it'd be burgers. But something that's quick is like hot dogs or brats for sure.
For sure. I've seen everything. My brother has season tickets, and it's like they go above and beyond sometimes. Like they'll do like omelets, and then the next thing, chili's like one thing, and you're like, man, you're eating that at like 8 o'clock in the morning. That's insane. That's insane.
I feel bad for your stomach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then of course you got to drink some beer. So yeah, man, that's crazy. But guys, with that being said, obviously, football is coming like we stated, and there really is kind of some stuff going on. I know I watched your guys' collaboration the other day, and you didn't quite make it to the point where we saw Alex Okafor being announced to come back. I think that in both our collaborations, at some point we've talked about the DN position still kind of being a weakness. I know Josh and I have talked about Frank Clark. I know you two talked about Frank Clark a little bit.
I talked about Frank Clark. That's for sure.
I think just a little bit. What are your guys' thoughts on Okafor actually signing? Because I was listening today on the radio as I was driving home, and they're talking about the statistics of Melvin Ingram, what he signed for, 1 year, $4 million. I haven't quite seen Okafor's contract yet, but I can't imagine to be anywhere close to that. What are your guys' thoughts on him coming back and really being a depth piece? Because that's honestly what we know we're getting, a depth piece. So Michael, go ahead and what are your thoughts on Okafor coming back?
I honestly personally love it. I think that it's a guy that has a very familiar face in the locker room. He's familiar with the system. Obviously, he's been here the past couple of years. But from an overall analysis of the signing, it almost kind of seemed like a last ditch effort. Like Brett Veach is like, oh shoot, Frank Clark might get suspended, so we got to do something about that. Which, I like the aggressiveness of going out and getting someone, at least in the worst case, if all else fails, you got Alex Okafor. But you could have also done this a couple months ago when there were a lot more pass rushers on the market, and Justin Houston's still out there. Justin Houston is debatably a starter. Like he started, I believe, for the Colts. He's a guy that could literally probably just replace Frank Clark entirely. And it's not like he's going to command some massive contract. I just think that Brett Veach kind of has to get over his ego a little bit, because he's he needs to bring back Justin Houston. I mean, I like Alex Okafor and all, but he's a plug and play guy, and he's going to be a guy that I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets hurt some point through the season.
For sure. And, Josh, I'm going to definitely ask you the same question, but I know you did the video where you did some cuts that could obviously happen at some point going into training camp and through training camp. And I saw, Jerry Hughes being one that you were talking about. What are your thoughts on Okafor? And then have you, in doing more research constantly, I know you're looking, is there anybody else that you would like to add even more to that potential cut list that you would be interested in?
Yeah, so starting with Alex Okafor, going back to what Michael said, I feel like this is kind of a little bit of a desperation move because when you look at the facts that are Kansas City voided the last year of Alex Okafor's contract before free agency. So they had him under contract already at a pretty fair number and basically told him, hey, it's been nice having you, but we don't want you anymore. They voided his contract. And then to bring him back a couple of months later just kind of looks a little bit desperate and quite honestly not great. And I get he knows the system and all. And the Chiefs, this has been an annoying stigma of theirs for me personally that I have kind of gotten a little bit annoyed of, is that they always bring back guys that quote unquote know the system when in reality there's players out there that maybe haven't been with the Chiefs and don't know the system, but the type of player that they are is still going to turn out a bigger net positive than the guy that knows the system. Like I remember a couple years back, they had a final roster spot for the 2018 playoff run and they brought back Frank Zombo. Like, really? Come on.
Oh, yeah, 51.
Frank the Tank.
But anyway, my point is that I feel like there were better guys out there. I feel like there are going to be better guys out there than Alex Okafor. But on the bright side, Alex Okafor, yes, he knows the system. That is worth a little bit. Sometimes I think people kind of overrate that aspect.
These are smart players. They can pick it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I mean, these guys, they're in the NFL. But Alex Okafor, when he has been healthy, he's been decent. I remember in 2019, in those first 10 games, he had 5 sacks. After that, he's just really struggled to stay healthy. But he plays really strong. Like I've heard multiple people talk about, man, I didn't realize how big Alex Okafor is. Like he's a big, strong dude. He can play the run pretty decently too when he's healthy. My concern about it is that I don't know if it quite fixes the Chiefs' ability to get pass rush from the edge, considering he's been on the team the past 2 years and we've still kind of been wanting a little bit more. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts right there. I feel better about the defensive end room now than I did before they signed Alex Okafor. So
for sure, Michael, this might relate to some things that you and I have talked about on your live stream. And this almost to me feels like a Kansas City Royals signing of a previous 14 or 15 veteran, where they go out and they get a guy. And I don't think that it's going to be to that playing level, but it's almost like we're comfortable because, again, he's a plug and play. He's easy to he already understands what we do here. And we're just going to go get him and plug him in, where there are other options. I do, honestly, this is my opinion. I think that when they brought Ingram in the first time, I do think that he was asking for way too much money. But I think the second thing is how much they emphasize the fact that Chris Jones is going to be playing a significant role at D end. And they're like, hey, man, there's a chance Frank Clark, because I don't think they knew about the second, gun charge yet. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that occurred when Ingram visited the first time. I think that they were like, hey, look, we have Frank Clark on the right side. We have Chris Jones going to be kicking out. You're not going to be a starter. So that's where we're at. Plus, you're asking way too much money. We're going to go ahead and send you on your way. But if you want to lower your price and be accepting of not starting.
Yeah, Lucas, you're perfectly on the money there. I think this was about the role that they offered Melvin Ingram more so than the money. And
another thing, really quickly, I would almost argue that they're going at it from a quantity over quality. Alex Okafor, he's just a body, kind of like Mike Dana is, kind of like Joshua Kando is. They just want bodies. Just get quality pass rushers. If you had quality ones, you wouldn't need to have 3 guys to fit one role.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of my thing too, is I'm wondering if that's the hiccup with Justin Houston. I think that there's more to it than us as fans. I guess I shouldn't say us as fans because we're playing out of the fan role right now. But, I think from wanting Justin Houston to come back because we know what he's capable of doing, there's a lot more that goes into that because he's obviously still knows he's capable of performing at a pretty good level. He knows what the previous, what it was like leaving the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that there's a lot that goes into that I don't see it actually happening, even though I would like to see it happen, because I think, man, when you really talk about it, you're talking about an interchangeable Justin Houston and a Chris Jones. Then obviously you're plugging in your D tackles. Then you have Frank Clark suspended potentially for 4 games, and then you got that rotation there. But it's the fact that you're bringing different options at a multitude of different things. I just don't see him coming back. Or you real quickly, because I don't want to beat a dead horse with this DN spot. Yeah. Do you guys honestly envision Justin Houston coming back?
I'll go first. I don't think he is. Honestly, I think that, I was talking about this with Josh, and I quoted this on my Instagram because I got no problem kind of poking fun of myself. The night before we signed Alex Okafor, I said, and I quote, "I cannot see the Chiefs adding any more defensive ends," which is just kind of ironic. I mean, I was wrong, but I had no problem being wrong. That's a good way of being wrong. But I don't think they're going to bring in Justin Houston. I mean, I'd like them to. I think that his production would probably double that of Alex Okafor, but there's some stigma or there's something holding this Chiefs front office up, because there should be no reason why Justin Houston is not back in a Chiefs uniform. Yeah. He talk about knowing the system. He was here for what? At least, I want to say 10 years, something like that. I mean, he was here a long time. I get it. The defense has shifted a little bit. It's not we run a 4-3. It was a 3-4, but come on. It's Justin
Houston. He played
Houston,
in a 4-3 in Indy too. Like he just played in a 4-3 for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also Justin Houston. He'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michael. I don't think they bring him back. I don't think it's just one of those things where it's like if they wanted to, I feel like it would have been done already, and they haven't done it. And I did forget to answer your question a couple minutes ago, Lucas, about if I see them adding, anyone outside the organization, like a cut candidate or something like that. I'm still gonna go with no. Like I want them to. Like I would like them to get someone else, but I feel like this is something we're gonna clamor for, and it's just not gonna happen. And they're gonna go into the season with what they have.
Well, the reason, so this is the final DN question, and that kind of the reason I was wanting you to answer that is because of this. Do you feel that they see something that we don't in Joshua Kendo? Like, do you think that they know that there is untapped potential there, and this isn't a Tano Passanao, and they're like, hey, we've seen him be elite playing for Florida State, which isn't Villanova or UConn, wherever, Tano came from. Do you think that they're like, hey, this kid's young, he's hungry, he can work, learn from Chris Jones, he can learn from, learn from Frank Clark. Do you think that they're going to be like, look, this kid might actually pop up on scene and do something that we are not expecting him to do?
Well, let me go first. I think Joshua Kendo, he wasn't really that good at, I think it was ASU, or no,
Florida State.
No. It was Florida State. My bad. But he wasn't really all that good. I know injuries kind of. What was it? Did something happen? I heard something.
No. Yeah, we were just correcting you on the Florida State.
Yeah. He went to Florida State, but he wasn't really all that good. I know that he had. He was disappointing from what I heard and what I read and what I saw.
He didn't turn out production. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete, but at the same time, like, he didn't show anything in college. And that's, I think, the reason why he got picked, because he's just that freakishly good of an athlete. But we've kind of seen the freak athletes not pan out. I mean, look at Breland Speaks. He wasn't even a freak athlete, but he just completely busted. I mean, Tano was a great athlete, and he didn't bust, but he wasn't that good. So it's just kind of like, I'm going into this with very, very low expectations. I hope that he pans, but I don't think that this is going to be a guy that almost has like a L'Jarius Sneed impact right away.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
I mean, no, it's possible. Maybe that's, something they're excited for and why they haven't addressed it. the defensive end position, but I feel like it's just not that all that likely. Like we talk about how they see Joshua Kando kind of the same way they saw Tano Passanha, but Joshua Kando in the 5th round, we're going to be lucky if he turns into anything close to Tano Passanha even, because I mean, people are putting some high expectations on a 5th round pick. Now, we talked about how he's got that athletic upside and maybe there's some untapped potential there, which is why the Chiefs made the pick, maybe why he dropped a little bit, because maybe he's a late bloomer, which is also possible. It happens a lot in the NFL. There's a lot of late bloomers coming out of the draft.
Yeah.
But I kind of hope that's not their thinking. Now, of course, I'm not at practice every day. I'm not inside that locker room, so I could be wrong. But I feel like you'd be putting too much expectations on a player like that.
For sure, and that's definitely why I wanted to ask you guys, because I think that there was a reason they drafted him, and you just don't want to waste draft picks. That was something that they really emphasized today on the radio, was that if you're going to go out and sign these players to big time contracts, then you're going to have to be able to capitalize and get good players in the draft, because you're going to have to fill holes with those draft picks. And I think that's significant too. So a fun question I'm going to ask you both. Josh, I'm going to start off with you. If there is one jersey you could pick from the Kansas City Chiefs outside of Patrick Mahomes, what jersey you buying?
Well, this might be the wrong answer since I already have the jersey, but I gotta go with Tyrann Mathieu. I love Tyrann Mathieu. I love players like him that you just play with a lot of heart. He's one of the reasons the team wins like it does. He's a leader. And another guy from one of my other favorite teams. I'm actually a Boston Celtics fan when it comes to the NBA. Marcus Smart. I have his jersey too. I feel like there's a lot of similarities with him on the court to Tyrann Mathieu on the field. And I just love players like that, man.
Oh, we dealt with Marcus Smart.
I was going to say, as a KU fan, we know Marcus Smart well.
Yeah. He's a pesky dude, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say Nick Bolton, because I know you're a Mizzou guy.
Yeah, that'd probably be my next answer after Tyrann Mathieu.
All right, Michael, what's up?
Honestly, Tyrann was a really, really good pick. I was probably going to go with Tyrann, but I kind of want to, for the sake of this episode, pick someone else. So I was kind of like thinking about it in my head really quickly. A guy that I'm really fond of, and there's a couple different answers. Like, I feel like there's a couple guys that aren't really like mainstream that'd be really cool to have. Like, I'd rock a Daniel Sorensen jersey. It'd be super under the radar, but like, gotta love Dirty Dan Sorensen. But like, realistically, I'd get a Willie Gay jersey for sure.
You guys might, I'm gonna go Noah Gray.
Wow.
I'm excited. I'm a huge Honey Badger fan. Like, I rock my Eric Berry jersey. He's my favorite player of all time. I'm a big Badger fan. I was very epically sad when the Cardinals drafted him out of, wherever he actually came from, because he didn't finish at LSU. But
yeah,
I'm a big Honey Badger fan. But I'm on the Noah Gray bandwagon. But that leads me to this question about jerseys. Would you ever find yourself purchasing a offensive lineman's jersey? Because we potentially could have one of the best left tackles in the game who could be getting a very lucrative contract here coming up. Would you ever see yourself purchasing a offensive lineman's jersey? Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I would. I mean, Orlando Brown would probably be the no-brainer, because he's going to be one of the best left tackles in the game. But I also feel like with some of those positions, like, I think Trey Smith's going to pan out to be a really good talent. But honestly, I think that Orlando Brown's kind of the way to go.
Josh?
You know what? I'm going to say I wouldn't see myself buying an offensive lineman jersey. Also, this might sound kind of weird, but I could never see myself like buying like a jersey of a player that's like not my body type at all. Like, why would I want to buy a jersey for someone that's like 5 times the size as me? Like, do I look like Orlando Brown? Like, why would I wear? Not that I want. Do you get what I'm saying though?
Yeah,
there's something weird about that to me.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what. Here's my hot take. I think Kyle Long's going to have the best jersey sales among anyone on the offensive line.
Yeah.
For reasons that we all know.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome, man. I hope he gets on the field. I think I think Kyle Long's still got definitely the juice to play, but I think Trey Smith's definitely, I hope to see Trey Smith. I interviewed Caleb James. He's from Arrowhead Addict, I think it is. No,
Live.
Arrowhead Live, yeah. And he actually was telling me the story about he was at a Buffalo Wild Wings for a UFC fight, and he actually ran into Creed Humphrey and Trey
Oh
Smith, and
wow.
they both were putting down about 100 wings apiece. And he's like, those guys are
What?
monsters. He's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
so he's like 6'4" already. I think Caleb's like 6'3", and he's like standing next to. I saw the picture. Standing next to him, he literally looks like a little kid, and I was like, that is incredible. So yeah, those guys are big boys, and they're ready to play some football. So that's what's going to be pretty cool. But that does lead me to this next question. I think that obviously we're going to see some exciting football this year. And, I proposed a question to you guys individually in each one of our videos before, but, going into this season, our schedule is going to be very, very tough. And, what, again, both of you guys, if you had to pick some games that you think we're going to take some L's, just pick one of those. I mean, obviously, you guys don't have the schedules in front of you necessarily,
Yeah.
but off the top of your head, what is one that stands out that you think that it's going to provide such a tough competition that we might take an L? Josh, I'll
Uh,
start
Go
with
first,
you.
Josh.
yeah. I'm going to look at the schedule real quick. Actually, while I'm doing that, because I want to make sure this team's actually on the schedule before I go rambling on about them. So, Michael, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So the Packers were one that you would bring up, but Aaron Rodgers is not going to be there next year. The dude turned down, I think it was the biggest contract in NFL history, like literally a couple days ago. So
Yeah.
he's not going to be in Green Bay. So the Packers, it's Jordan Love season, baby. So no, he's not going to beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Wait, is it at Arrowhead? That game's going to be at Arrowhead?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not seeing that happening. But a game that there's two games that come up to me as losses. That's week 5, I believe, against the Bills. It's at home. I understand that. But kind of going off of our history, we win the first 4 and we lose the 5th one. And that's happened for the past like 4 or 5 years. And I also just think that this team is going to get out to such a hot start that week 5, even though they did face this team in the AFC Championship game, they have a hiccup at some point, and it's normally around that time. So I think that that's a game that they drop. And the second game that we drop, and honestly, I could see that being the only other loss, is I don't know what week it is, but we play the Chargers in Los Angeles on a short week after playing the Raiders. And that game, I think that that's probably the game that if I had to bet money that we're losing, it's that game.
Well, and I think too that that's like going to have playoff implications too, potentially because of how late it is in the season. If I could, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Chargers game is very late in the year. So, Josh, did you find it?
Yeah, so Titans. That's one of the games I'm worried about, especially with Julio on that team now. And if the team does struggle at cornerback or defensive end the way that I'm afraid they might, that's going to be a tall task. And Lucas, you mentioned it in one of your videos a long time back, the number of talented receivers we're going up against this year.
Yeah.
That's something that really stands out to me more and more as I look at the schedule is Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, OBJ, Jarvis Land. Like there's a lot of tall tests for a corner group that's relatively unproven. And that's a game that, features 2 really good receivers, Julio Jones and AJ Brown. And neither of them are the biggest offensive threat even on that team that we got to worry about. So that's going to be a tall task. The other one, Michael, you said at the Chargers. Now, I don't have a specific one, whether it's the first one or the second one, but I think the Chargers will get them at least once this year because if we're being honest, the Chargers have always had the talent to match up with the Chiefs. Just they could never stay healthy and they never had the right coach to do it. They got a new coach this year, and from what I heard, they hired a new team physician and new team head doctor. So their training staff now, I think there's been some turnover there. So the hope is now they don't have all those injuries that they've had every year. And the guys over at RGR Football have pointed out several times. Derwin James has been the only defensive back ever that has given Travis Kelce fits consistently. And if they can take Travis Kelce out of the game, that's going to be tough.
For sure. You know, and I'm 100% on board with that. I really do think that the Chargers, even though their fans don't show up, I definitely
all
think
four of them.
I definitely think that, you know, my hot take was I think if something does happen to Mahomes, you know, where he isn't in the running for MVP, I think that there's a chance Herbert might actually be there, just because I think that's how lethal he can potentially be. I think he is definitely a special talent. I mean, he's got Keenan Allen, you know, and they're going out and they're definitely a threat on offense. Though, even though they lost Hunter Henry, you know, I still think that they go out and get Jared Cook. So I really do like, you know, what they provide. I just kind of wonder if that defense is going to be able to contain Mahomes and what we obviously have from our lethal offense. But so I'm going to flip it on to you guys, because Josh threw this one at me in his interview. And if you guys had to pick a cut to happen in training camp, outside of Dorian O'Daniel and Darwin Thompson, because those are my picks.
Of course you mentioned the dude that I was gonna pick. Okay.
If that, honestly, if Darwin Thompson's your guy, then I completely understand.
No,
so,
we're gonna rethink it.
Okay, I'll start out, Josh, with you. Who do you got that's gonna get cut from this team?
New answer that I didn't mention the last time we talked, that I think is getting a tougher path to making the roster, is Demarcus Robinson.
Okay. I agree, because you and I both agreed Antonio Callaway is right there.
Yeah.
And if he has
I think Antonio Callaway, well, there's no doubt. I think that Antonio Callaway is better than him. Like I said, it's just always about him keeping his head on straight. If he can do that, he's going to be the third or fourth receiver on this team. I feel like, if, you know, like I said, if everything works out the way it should with him, there's a lot of, I mean, Cornell Powell is rising. There's a lot of talented receivers on this squad. And I think Demarcus Robinson, maybe this is the year Andy finally says, we're letting you go.
You know, I'm kind of curious, because I'll keep unless you got it, Michael, but I think that there's a chance we might see Byron Pringle, honestly. I really do. I think he extended maybe, but I'm kind of wondering.
He signed a tender, I believe.
Yeah, but I just kind of wonder where he truly falls. Like, if DeMarcus comes out and actually shows improvement on his hands, maybe he's a little bit better on route running, because that was a huge knock on him, was his route running. And obviously Hardman has some of that as well. You know, maybe he took that step and really is taking that seriously. Maybe he does step up, and then we see Byron Pringle get that, you know, cut or whatever. So,
you know, and the interesting thing about that, Lucas, is that people are probably going to call you crazy for saying that. And I think Byron Pringle is good enough that he deserves a spot on this team. Yeah. That being said, that he hasn't gotten that much run. Like, there's been a lot of other times they still could have played him. And he just, I mean, the dude's got 300 career receiving yards in 3 seasons with the team.
Yeah. And, you know, I was a big fan because he was coming from K-State, a local school. He had really good numbers there. So I've always pulled for him. It's just, it's a different game at the NFL. And like you just said, he's just never taken almost to that next step where he's been reliable enough to show consistent. I mean, he's had some very special moments in kickoff return. I mean, that game in Denver or against Denver when it was snowing and he ran it back. I mean, that was huge, that game. But yeah, I'd be curious to see if maybe that's one that at some point they consider. Michael, who you got?
You know, really quickly, you know, we were talking about Byron Pringle. My expectations for him were very, very low because he was a UDFA. So, like, we had nothing really invested in him. So I think that whatever he's done and whatever he's going to do is a bonus. But the guy that I was thinking of, because honestly, like, besides Darwin Thompson, who I think he's going to get cut, either him or Jerick McKinnon, but I that's not my guy. But I think that Mike Hughes has a very good chance of getting cut, especially if he gets injured in training camp, because you're going to have DeAndre Baker hopefully coming back. Travarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed. I'm a big fan of Rashad Fenton. I think that he's a very good press slot corner. So I think that they should probably move there. I mean, if Hughes doesn't end up playing, but I think that honestly, he's the odd man out in that secondary, but I would rather them keep him because we need bodies in the secondary, but he's kind of the name that jumped out to me immediately.
Awesome. Well, guys, I have an announcement, and I'm going to need both of you to thank Zoom. We just got a gift from Zoom that said, you know what? You guys are doing a group Zoom. It's going very well. We're going to go ahead and nix the 40 minutes. So that means we're going to keep on this train rolling. So,
Yay.
yeah, so let's continue rolling on because I do want to talk about linebackers, honestly, because, Josh, when we interviewed, I told you how much I truly care about linebackers. We see Fred Warner go out and sign a 5-year, 90 to 95, I think it was.
We drafted Breland Speaks over him, by the way. I just want to throw that in there.
I was rubbing that in today to one of the guys I work with because I'm a huge Fred Warner fan, big time, and I'm a huge linebacker, so that really bothers me. But, and then now they're working on Darius Leonard over there with the Indianapolis Colts. With that being said, we're obviously drafting Nick Bolton. We're drafting Willie Gay. Hitchens is, on the cusp of leaving. I think he'll definitely, after you and I talk, Josh, I think he'll stay on the team just because
the team likes him.
Yeah, for sure. But, with that being said, we're talking about some very significant contracts being there in the linebacker spot. Moving forward, what do you guys think that how serious do you think that this is going to be a position of need? Is it going to be a sore thumb? Like, are we going to get exposed in that position? Or do you think I mean, it's something we could talk about with the secondary, but do you think that's more of a concern going into this season than I guess just because we're so young and we have Anthony Hitchens? Michael, I'll let you kind of, you look
go ahead, Michael.
You're ready to roll.
I honestly like our linebacker group. Nick Bolton might not have been my first choice, but after seeing the improved stats, and not even necessarily the stats, just I kind of learned the player that he is, and he's a really smart dude. So I think he's almost Hitchens' replacement when he's done. But Willie Gay is the guy that they drafted last year, just with all the raw talent and the athleticism, and the guy that can go sideline to sideline and make incredible plays and tackles. And a guy that I would actually like to see them bring back, and I know he wasn't a popular player by any means, but I thought Damian Wilson was really, really solid. I mean, he was a guy that we brought in for dirt cheap, but he was able to play at a championship caliber level. Well, he was able to play on a championship caliber defense. And I think that honestly, just as a guy that could come in, if he was hurt, I'd much rather have Damian Wilson come into the game than Omari Cobb. So, you know what I mean? I think that there's a room for addition in the linebacker room for sure, because we could always use more depth. But, I mean, obviously, if no one gets hurt, I like the way this position is right now, because Hitchens is kind of your go-to guy. He's the leader. He's going to be calling the shots. Willie Gay is going to get a more refined role in the defense for sure, because it's his second year. But Nick Bolton, in a way that Willie Gay was not, Nick Bolton's a very intuitive, smart player who's not going to need the time that Willie Gay did to develop. So I think that, honestly, we could have those three guys start in week 1. Would not be surprised.
For sure. So, Josh, I kind of have a question that'll compound off of that. So, we talked cuts. Yep. We talked cuts for sure. Ben Niemann. We obviously know Ben Niemann and how he's played. And you obviously talked about your cuts, who you could see getting picked up in after training camp or during training camp. Do you have any linebackers off the top of your head that if they do cut a Ben Niemann, say, and they want to go get, because unfortunately Damian Wilson did sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Michael, so he's no longer an option. But is there anybody that you see potentially that we could go get at a linebacker spot, Josh?
I don't know anyone off the top of my head. However, I know a team that now has a surplus of linebackers. I forget if they drafted one or two this past draft, but the Dallas Cowboys, they drafted Micah Parsons.
Yes.
And then I feel like there was one more that I'm forgetting, or they brought
Jabril
someone.
Cox.
Yes, you're right. Jabril Cox. They brought both of those guys in.
LSU.
And they already had Jalen Smith. They already had Leighton Vander Esch. I'm hearing stuff, reading stuff that maybe Jalen Smith gets cut because of how much he's getting paid, or Leighton Vander Esch because they don't like how much he's been hurt. Those are two guys that if they get released, I'd love for them to take a flyer on.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think Vander Esch obviously has some injuries and he wears a neck brace for a reason.
Yeah.
But I would like that too. I really think that but that's the thing. If you're able to find a way to be a rotation, because I think that's a significant part to why we see some struggles in the linebackers, that Hitchens, it seems like he's out there every play almost, except for there's, Ben Neiman fills in here and there, but it seems like Hitchens is constantly out there. And you want to have those rotational pieces there to not only give breaks, but, to be able to do different things. Obviously third down is a completely different scenario than first down a lot of the time. But yeah, I definitely, I'm excited to see this linebacker core develop because again, that's my favorite position on the field. Sometimes I would say safety, but you have your hybrids.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of thinking, and I want this to be a fun question too. If you guys could name a play, because we saw the play in the Super Bowl that was like ZY Wasp, whatever. Give me the best name you can possibly come up with for a play, and who's it going to be thrown to or handed off? Give me just a brief rundown on what you guys are thinking. Josh, you want to go first? Michael, you want to go first? Let me know.
Michael, I'll let you go, man.
Thanks for that, Josh. Honestly, I couldn't tell you a name, but I could see them doing a reverse jet sweep, but they do it twice to the point where they flip it to Tyreek, who flips it to Mecole, who flips it to someone else, and they just take the edge. I couldn't tell you what that's called. It kind of just came out of the top of my head. Names can be applied. I don't know what you'd call it, but maybe like a triple sweep or a 3-game sweep. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something. I don't know, but we'll go with that for sure.
Josh, what do you got?
Man, I got absolutely no idea. You really put me on the spot for this one. Honestly, though, just something where where one or two people are going deep, and that's the goal, is to hit a home run with it.
So with that being said, because the reason why I was going to see what you guys answered, do you think at any point this year we see Patrick Mahomes catch a touchdown?
I hope not. I really hope not, because it's just
you guys know that we've seen that pulled out. It almost happened last year. So, it's in the playbook. So do you think at any point we see Patrick Mahomes catch a touchdown?
If it's in the
go ahead. No. I think I don't know if it'll happen this season, but at some point they're gonna do it. They're gonna break that out. Mahomes is gonna catch a touchdown at some point.
It's gonna come from Kelsey.
Well, they gotta let Kelsey do it so he can improve his QBR from that one time they let him throw. I think it was in the Giants game a couple years ago, and he threw an interception. You gotta let him recover from that.
Yeah.
His last throw in the NFL can't be a pick.
Yeah, I honestly. And this is probably going to get into another conversation. My biggest criticism of Andy Reid is he gets way too cute in the red zone.
Yep.
Let's just see what happens if I have Mahomes run this way, Kelsey go this way, Tyreek, you do something in the backfield. It's just dude, hand the ball off, or just do they do those laterals to Kelsey, and no one's going to tackle that dude if he's in the 5-yard line. I mean, it's just there was times last year, and I think it was in the Bucs game where they tried to give Mahomes a touchdown catch, and I think he might have just dropped it, or maybe it got deflected or something like that. But it's just don't get too cute, because honestly, we're all talking about it. NFL teams definitely have that in the back of their mind. I would be kind of disappointed if they use that in anything other than a playoff game.
Yeah. So my kind of contradiction, or I guess my devil's advocate to that is, I think if they are constantly proposing different things in the red zone, because I'm with you, I understand, but I think if they're constantly showing you different looks, you don't necessarily know what to prepare for exactly when it comes to that red zone. Like you said,
Yeah.
are they just going to do a traditional RPO up the middle, or are they going to do this razzle dazzle where Travis Kelce's the ball's pitched to him and he almost becomes the running back up the middle? I like that play, but they pull that out just a little bit too much.
Yes.
But those are the types of things I always kind of wonder, like if they're going into it thinking like they are not going to know necessarily how to prepare for this. And I think, that's something to think about too, but I get it, man. I truly get it. Just go traditional ground and pound, or like find a good quick seam and throw it to them. I get it. So, all right, I got another fun one for you guys, because I've been thinking about this all day. I told you guys these were going to be good. If you had to give yourself a Madden rating, and on top of that, what position would you play? Josh, go ahead first.
I'd probably I'd probably be at running back. Well, that's what I played in high school. I played that for my last, I stopped playing after my junior year after I got hurt. But that's where I played that last year. And then I played a little bit of slot receiver before that. I probably play there. And man, a rating. Oh man, if I was in the NFL, go ahead and give me a 70. You can always go up from there.
You can work your way up. Michael, what do you got?
So there's a position that I'd obviously want to be. I think I could be a tight end. I got really good hands. Like you'd see me just making one-hand catches and stuff like that. Realistically, I'd probably be somewhere along the line. I'm not big enough to be a tackle. Maybe plug me in at like a guard, and whatever the lowest possible rating is, put me there. Put me wherever that is.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going kicker, and I'm going 92.
Wow.
Yeah. I got a boot, and I'm left-footed, so I was either going to say that or punter, because when I kicked in high school, I could never actually put the spiral on it. It was always a knuckle, and the ball would come down, and like I don't think anybody ever caught a punt, and I just never knew how I kicked a knuckle, so I just gave myself a 92. So that's what's up. That's what's up.
I think Harrison Buttoncrist in 92. So yeah, you come for his job.
Yeah, they better bring you into camp.
Yeah, well, I can assure you this. I probably would not miss an extra point. Put that on the record there, Harrison Butker, because that's
Let's
the most.
See it.
Honestly, how frustrating is that when you're sitting there watching the
That's
Chiefs
an
game?
underrated talking point that a lot. I made a quick video on it, didn't get a ton of views or anything, but I was like, this guy needs to get better at extra points.
Well, I mean, seriously, because we score. I mean, a lot of the time we score out the gate, and then next thing you know, it's only 6-0, and I mean that could always come back and bite us. And I do.
It almost did in that Cleveland Browns playoff game. He missed an extra point and a field goal. Give us those 4 extra points back, and there's no reason to panic at the end.
Yeah, and there's probably, I mean, yeah, for sure.
Honestly, and it's just a mental thing. The dude has no problem making them. He makes 50-yarders like it's nothing. So it's a mental thing, or it is I don't really know what it is. Maybe it's the pressure coming off the end. I couldn't tell you, but whenever we talk about Harrison Butker, it's kind of hard to be like super like critical of him, because I kind of know him a little bit. So he's a really good dude.
Yeah,
I think we went to the same church at some point. So yeah, he's a guy that like whenever we start ragging on Harrison Butker, I'm just like what you guys said, because it's just like it's hard for me to get in that Harrison Butker, you need to be a lot better. But objectively, non-biased, he does need to make those extra points.
That's my only thing. I think he's a hell of a field goal kicker. I really do. I think that when he came on, it definitely was something that you felt comfortable with. And then all of a sudden it's like we can't hit an extra point. Yeah. So
I mean, he hit a game winner in his debut.
Yeah. Well, and then last year, last year he hit what they call, it was 3 in a row or 2 in a row that a timeout happened and then a penalty. And then before we know it, he was kicking like a 50+ yarder, and he nailed it on the third one to win the game. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's something to consider too. So
I think every year he's made a game winner, because it was the Vikings in 19. Last year was the Chargers. Like he's consistent when it comes to winning the games, just not extra points.
For sure. So my final question, to wrap this up before I ask you the true final question, is right now, if you had to pick a record, because I want to make sure I do this, and if we decide to bust out our surprise to everybody, I want to stay consistent with this. what record do you have the Chiefs going this year? I'll start with you, Michael.
There's 17 games, so it'd be 18 weeks. Our bye week, I believe, is like week 12 or somewhere around there. So it's like, I love those mid to late season off weeks, because it's just like, great, we got a bye week in week 2. Like, that's not helpful. So honestly, I think we go 15-2. I would not be surprised if we go 16-1. It's just a matter of, if we're that far ahead of everyone else at the end of the season, do we rest people? Do we not? I mean, it's just, this team is going to be their own demise. No one's going to beat them unless they do it to themselves.
Yep. Josh?
Yeah, I'm going to go 14-3. I think they drop a few of them. One of them's probably going to be that last game of the year where they already probably got a spot locked up, and they don't have their starters playing. It's going to be something like that. 14-3, I think, is a really fair assumption.
I was leaning 14-3. I'm going to say 13-4, just because I think that our schedule in some facets, like we even talked about early on in this, I think there are some tough situations where it could be they come down to, playing really good teams back to back, or, maybe the schedule just, you go from a Thursday night and then you turn around and play again a few days later. So I think there's something like that in the schedule as well. So I was kind of leaning 13-4. I think 14-3 is very good. But I could also see where, it's easily what you said, Michael. So I want to kind of stay consistent with that, because I do really want to, and obviously injuries happen that could change the whole entire game. But I definitely want to kind of stay consistent, because then we can really see what we've evaluated throughout the year. But I appreciate you guys coming on. This was incredible. I think this is absolutely amazing, because this is, again, the first time I've had multiple guests on. So I do want to thank you guys for at least giving me this experience. Before we do wrap this up, Michael, go ahead and give everybody where they can find you at on your social medias and your YouTube.
Yeah, well, again, I appreciate you having us on. This is actually the viewers' first time seeing all three of us together. We've kind of all talked individually and stuff like that, but just to the people out there that are watching this, it's the first of many, should be. So, you guys can find me on Twitter. That's at KC Sports Report. Instagram, that's KC_Sports Report. YouTube, obviously KC Sports Report, and subscribe to both Josh, me, and the Beat of KC.
Awesome. Josh, give everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, so YouTube, Josh Fann, just type in the name. Twitter, at ShowMeFB, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome, guys. Well, again, thank you for coming on. It really does mean a lot, and I do look forward to the continuous growth of what we're trying to accomplish here. So you guys know how I wrap out these videos. As always, I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC, and have a good day.